Alright, guys, I'm going to rank the Batman movies now from 8 to 1 from worst to best. Just off the top, I want to say I have a little bit of a funky ranking. It's probably different than what you're expecting, so I just want to say that. Also, I'm only ranking solo modern movies, so no animation, no Adam West movies, and no Batfleck movies. So, with that being said, let's get into it. As much as it pains me, I got to put Batman and Robin last. Really nostalgic movie for me being a 90s kid, but it's just the worst movie of the bunch. I could not put it ahead of the Keaton movies as much as I wanted to. But I love the Schwarzenegger stuff. I think Clooney is a great Bruce Wayne. The Robin stuff is good. It's corny and people hate it at the time, but now that we got the Nolan movies, you can take it a lot less seriously. Uma Thurman is good. Obviously, the Bane stuff is cheesy and kind of over the top. But the sets are really cool. We don't get movies like this anymore. It's really like almost going to a time portal back into the 90s. We're never going to get movies that look like this again. There's not that much CGI. I mean, there's some, but it's like a lot of sets, a lot of cool designs. But still, overall, as a movie, it's probably the worst. Coming in at 7, Batman Returns. I almost put this movie last, but I just couldn't do it. I'm not as high on this movie as everyone else is. It's a very dark movie. A lot of people love it. Obviously, Danny DeVito's good and Michelle Pfeiffer's good as Catwoman, but this movie just doesn't do it for me in terms of rewatchability. When I go back and rewatch movies, I'd much rather rewatch Batman and Robin than this movie. Again, this is a better movie. I think the best part of this movie is the Batmobile. There's a lot of cool Batmobile stuff. Penguin kind of takes it over for a bit. There's a lot of cool tricks they do. So a lot of people have this movie as probably the best '90s movie. A lot of people are really high on this. I'm not as high on it as other people. This is where I might start bothering some people. But coming in at number 6, The Batman. I almost made this movie last, to be honest. Um, the ending of this movie I hated. I hated that he basically battled a bunch of Reddit mods. I thought this movie should have ended in the prison. It was too long. It turned into a Saw movie. The production of the movie is still very good, which puts it ahead of the other two movies. But in terms of rewatchability, I think this is the least rewatchable Batman movie that there is. Um, it really, I thought, had the chance to be the best Batman movie. And what's crazy about it is you would think that, oh, if someone hates this movie, it's because of Pattinson. I actually like this movie because of Pattinson. He was a good part of the movie for me. The bad part of the movie for me was kind of just the plot. I didn't think they did enough year one stuff. They rushed through that. Um, and I just kind of hated the ending. I hated what the Riddler was. I thought they turned the Riddler into Jigsaw. He was too dark. I don't want a Saw movie. I want a Batman movie. I was very excited to get the Riddler, and I think they kind of butchered him. I'm going to surprise more people with this, but coming in at number 5, Batman 1989. I really struggled with this. I considered putting it ahead of Batman Begins. I considered putting it ahead of Batman Forever. Um, but I like those movies better than this one. Jack Nicholson, I think, is a little bit overrated as Joker. I love the Bat Plane. I really love this movie, but I just love the other movies more than this. Overall, this is still a great movie. Keaton's great. Alfred's great. We got Lando, Billy D. Williams as Harvey Dent, but then they kind of switched him out, so we never really got to see the turn there. But my favorite part was always the Batplane in this movie. I love seeing the Batplane kind of going overhead. I thought that was the coolest visual. Keaton was great, but ahead, just slightly worse than the other movies. Coming in at number 4, Batman Begins. People are going to call me crazy. I love this movie, but again, not as high as the other three, including Batman Forever. I'll get into that later. A great intro, but this movie was just a little bit dry for me at times. It's probably the Nolan stuff that a lot of people love, the realistic stuff. There's times where I wish it got a little bit more comic booky, and then it didn't because it's Nolan and he's cared about being realistic. The League of Shadows stuff. So great movie, great intro. Of course, the end when he gets Joker card from Commissioner Gordon. A lot of people think this is like their favorite Batman movie. I disagree with that. Great movie, really no complaints. I just don't have it as high as the other ones. Coming in at number 3, and this is where people are going to call me nuts, Batman Forever. I think Val Kilmer is by far the most underrated Batman. He's by far the most underrated Bruce Wayne. He's excellent. This movie's a little bit corny, obviously Jim Carrey, but to me this ranking is all about Val Kilmer. His voice is great. He's great as Bruce Wayne. He's believable as someone who's smart, who's rich. I just always love this movie. When I think of the 90s movies, this is always the movie I go back to. Maybe a little bit nutty putting it ahead of Begins. I understand. Maybe it's a little bit jumping the gun, jumping the shark. I probably should have put Begins ahead of this. So yeah, I'll fully admit Begins is probably a better movie, but to me as a '90s kid, this is just kind of like Batman in its purest form when he gears up. He's got Robin, you get Two Face, you get Riddler. It's kind of like a mix between the Keaton stuff and then also the Clooney stuff. This is kind of like the middle ground where you get a little bit of both. So I always love this movie. Coming in at number two, and people are gonna call me crazy again, The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight is a great movie. It's probably the best movie of the bunch. It's not the best Batman movie. I'd argue this is a great mob movie. This is a great Joker movie. This is a great movie in general. It's a great bank robber movie. It has, nods to Heat, but it has a lot of holes as a Batman movie. A lot of its best scenes aren't Batman scenes. A lot of the best scenes are Batman getting his ass kicked. Best movie of the bunch? Not the best Batman movie in my period. And I'll get to that, which is my number one. But again, obviously an unbelievable movie. I don't think you can put it lower than number two here. I think at most you can have one movie ahead of this, in your rankings. Most intense movie, one of the best villains in movie history, but not the best Batman movie. It has holes as a Batman movie. Coming in at number one, by far the best Batman movie of any of these movies, The Dark Knight Rises. It encapsulates everything that Batman is supposed to be. The pit scene is the best scene of any of the Batman scenes. It's maybe my favorite scene in movie history. The way that they kind of took the Lazarus pit and transformed it. It takes all of the stuff from The Dark Knight that you like, but it gives you much more of a comic book twist, much more of a comic book ending. The ending of The Dark Knight kind of sucks. No one talks about it as much as they should. The Joker's just kind of, just there, kind of flailing around. There's not really a good ending. The Dark Knight Rises, in my opinion, has a much better ending. You can even make the argument at the time that Superman was supposed to rescue him from the bomb, which I still think the only way that he could have survived the atomic bomb is if Superman picked him up and carried him, which is what they should have done. But that's another story. But I think this movie, and I remember at the time, people thought I was crazy, but I remember when I watched this movie, this feels more like a Batman movie. When you're watching The Dark Knight, it feels more like Heat, kind of mixed with Batman, mixed with a Joker movie. There are elements to The Dark Knight that you can even have that entire movie and Batman doesn't even make an appearance. You can kind of just talk about Batman without even seeing him. This movie is a Batman movie. It's all about Batman working out, building himself back, kind of figuring shit out, carrying the bomb. So those are my Batman movie rankings. They're a little funky, as I said in the beginning, but I stand by them. I don't really have I don't really have a problem putting the movies anywhere you want. It really depends how old you are, what your biases are. But those are my rankings. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And as always, I'll see you on the next one.